UFC Fight Night, Arman Tsarukyan taking on Dan Hooker is coming up next weekend, and today, guys, I have the full card breakdown for you with timestamps if you'd like to skip to any part of the video. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels, as usual with these videos, guys. If you're new here, we are going to be diving into these fights as deep as we can possibly get. We have a very interesting and stacked card, just like with UFC 322. I'm going to be sad when we go through that little period at the end of the year with no UFC, but they are closing the year off with some bangers of cards. I'm excited to talk about this. If you are interested, again, in any particular fight or fights, timestamps will be available if you'd like to skip to any part of the video. Additionally, depending on when you're watching this, I'm recording this before UFC 322 took place. As of right now, we only have betting odds for 2 of those fights, so usually we talk about betting odds, but there's not a ton to exactly work with over here. With that being said, thank you so much for being here, guys. Let's get started with the early prelim opener. And opening up the card over here, we have Nurullo Aliev taking on Shaqueme Rock, and this is, again, I'm probably excited for, I think, just about every single fight on this card. But you know what? Let's break these two down, okay? Nurullo Aliev. Let's start with him over here. He is a wrestler who comes into the cage with primarily a game plan to do just that. And that's, of course, wrestle. He has decent striking. His jab is probably his best tool on the feet. But like I said, all he wants to do is come into the octagon and wrestle his opponents. If he happens to get an opponent to the ground, he has great control. He has decent ground and pound. And he does have excellent transitions and does offer a lot of really good defense if his opponent also matches good grappling skill sets. He is also very patient on the mat too, which is really nice to see. And now Aliev, guys, he's coming off of another long layoff here, and I have no clue why this guy has been so inactive. Not sure if it's injuries, not sure what the reasons are. It doesn't matter though, but he fought in the Contender Series 3 years ago, and then his most recent performance is going on about a year ago. All that we can really point to as of recently is his most recent performance against Joe Solecki, and as usual, he's shown up. He had a pretty good performance. He showed a great skill set in there, and he dominated the vast majority of the bout. Looked good in that entire fight. Other than that, all we can really point to is that he's undefeated. Thankfully, he's only 24 years old, almost 25 years old, so he still has a ton to give the game. Again, I'm not sure about the inactivity there, and this is going to be a little bit of a theme of the card today, and that's going to be inactivity. But let's talk about Shaqueme Rock, and I'm excited to talk about Shaqueme Rock, man. Shaqueme Rock, he is a well-rounded fighter, but primarily a grappler. And as a grappler, he brings a very real threat to the octagon. He comes in, he has good pressure, he has a diverse set of well-timed, sneaky takedowns and throws. On the actual mat, he has good transitions, he has very tight submissions along with that. Rock is now coming over from the Octagon scene, and a lot of times I normally kind of sit here and tell you that Octagon's a pretty good promotion. They have pretty good talent over there. But unfortunately, for Rock here, it's going to be a little bit more difficult than usual to gauge how good he is coming into the UFC, because specifically, the talent level that he faced over there is not too great. But from what we have seen, the skill set that he possesses in the Octagon is real. We'll just have to see how he kind of like transitions that into the UFC. He's been in his prime, he is in his prime. He's been fairly active. He's on a good win streak, and I'm excited to see him clash with Nurullo Aliev over here. And I think this is a very interesting fight. Every once in a while, you know, you have those bouts where you have two guys who come in with a primarily grappling game plan, and then they show up and they start battling each other in a striking match. I think it's possible that we see something like that here. I got to give a lean over towards Nurullo Aliev, though. Also, you have to consider where we're fighting. We're fighting in Qatar. There will be a little bit of a bias for some fighters, and I'm not going to be talking about that moving forward. It's something we'll be expanding on, when it comes to the betting guide. I'm going to give a slight lean to Nurullo Aliev over here. The problem is, again, both guys are a little bit relatively untested. Regardless, I'm excited to see this one. I kind of hope Shaqueme Rock gets the job done. He's been pretty fun to watch, but, I mean, Aliev's been okay, too. I think I'm going to give a slight lean to Nurullo Aliev, and this card is going to be full of good fights, full of a lot of fights with a lot of questions. Let's continue on. Next up, guys, we have what is, in my opinion, a guaranteed banger over here. We have Saygid Izagakhmaev taking on Nicolas Dalby. Nicolas Dalby still going strong at almost 42 years old. Let's break these two down for you, okay? We'll start with Saygid Izagakhmaev, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. He is a well-rounded fighter. He's primarily a grappler. He has really nice takedowns in the grappling. He has good chain wrestling, nice control, great ground and pound, and has submissions with all of that as well. He brings really nice pressure into the cage, and is also, along with that, I know I just spoke about his ground game, but he's very capable on the feet as well. He's good at mixing things up, landing some sneaky shots, but the game plan will be to always just get opponents to the ground and finish the fight there. Now, Saygid is coming over from one championship, and if you guys have been following the channel, you might know that I glaze them a little bit. I get a little bit of pushback when I talk about one. Their talent level over there, in my opinion, is incredible, and he took on some pretty underrated guys over there. The only issue is that we have another fighter, which, like I said, is going to be a theme of the card, who has been super inactive. He's been out of the cage for almost 3 years now, and I'm sorry again, guys, I don't have the reasoning as to why for you. All we know is that he has a good record, he's performed well, he's taken on some good guys, and he's been absent for 3 years. Thankfully, he's still in his prime. He's training over in Dagestan. He has a solid win streak and is looking to bring all of that over to the UFC. Just keep in mind, for those of you who do like to bet on these types of fights, you always have to be careful with the guy coming back after something like 3 years. Unless maybe you're Arman Tsarukyan. A lot could happen, but we can just hope for the best. Again, I always talk about these one championship guys. I think they're very underrated fighters over there, okay? But let's talk about Nicolas Dalby. Nicolas Dalby is a well-rounded fighter. He is a good striker with a lot of heart and a lot of cardio, and really brings a nice pace to weaponize that cardio that he brings. He's actually one of those guys that noticeably utilizes breathing, and this is something I often talk about Nicolas Dalby. You can literally see him using it throughout the fight. He also does a good job at not accepting any bad positions he may find himself in. He makes it very difficult for opponents to maintain any sort of control on him. And if somebody is able to, usually that control on Dalby that they have doesn't last long. But again, he's well-rounded. He always brings a tough fight. Now with Nicolas Dalby, he is unfortunately on a 2-fight skid, but I do think they're respectable losses to have. He had an amazing fight with Rinat Fakhretdinov in a fight that could have honestly gone either way. His wrestling defense in that fight was on point, and he pushed a really good pace. Then he lost to Randy Brown, unfortunately, but that was another insanely good and tough outing. I know in that bout he ended up getting finished, and I know that after Randy's most recent loss to Gabriel Bonfim, people might look down on that loss a little bit more, but I still think Randy is great, and Nicolas, he looked good in those last couple fights that he ended up losing. Prior to that, he was also on a very underrated win streak with quality. So the only issue here is that Nicolas Dalby at this point is 41 years old now. Somehow he's been one of those guys that's been defying Father Time and performing well. And Dalby, Dalby isn't just performing well. He's literally pushing through paces, insane paces and going through wars. The day will come, though, where he looks his age, and that day will likely come up fast. We have to worry about it in general coming into play here with his age specifically, and even more so, actually, because he just went through a battle against a very, very tough guy in Randy Brown, and he got finished at the end of that battle. That's something that is very difficult to come back to when you're at that age that Nicolas Dalby is. Again, he's almost 42 years old, and he'll have, when you have the kind of miles on your body and the age that Nicolas Dalby's at right now, it's tough. For those of you who do like to bet, be careful that Dalby might show up next weekend, and he might not exactly be the same guy that we're used to. But it's just something to worry about. He might show up in a classic Nicolas Dalby style and continue to defy Father Time. It's just the thing is, Father Time is undefeated, though, and Father Time's on its way. I'm interested to see what version of Dalby shows up. We can only hope for the best, but we will have to wait and see. And this is another matchup, guys, that I am incredibly excited to talk about over here. I'm incredibly excited to watch this fight. It's tough for me because I like Nicolas Dalby. He is so much fun to watch, and it's always like a feel-good moment when you have a fighter that is up there in age. He's continuously defying Father Time, having great performances. But I do always cheer for my one championship, guys. One championship is my favorite promotion. I love watching the fighters over there. And it's a good signing the UFC got, man. It's tough. It's real tough. I don't know who I want to win. I hope both of them end up having a good performance. Maybe they get a bonus. But I have to lean towards Saygid. I'm a little bit worried about the layoff, or a lot of worried about the layoff. I don't know if he's recovering from an injury or anything like that. But it's more so because, again, like I spoke about, Father Time's coming for Nicolas Dalby. And it hasn't been long, just about 6 months ago, that he got KO'd by Randy Brown. He went through a lot in that fight. He went through a lot in a lot of his most recent fights. Maybe this is where he shows up and doesn't look so great. I'm going to give a lean to Saygid Izagakhmaev for that reason. I think he's going to get the job done. I think he pushes a good pace. But then again, I can also see him, grappling Nicolas Dalby. And just, Nicolas is like, nope, you're not grappling me today. He's one of those guys. I'm going to go with Saygid, though. I think he's going to get the job done. It's one of those fights where it's a shame that somebody has to lose. Let's continue on here up the card, guys. We have Ryan Loder, Man of Steel, taking on Ismail Naurdiev. And I am excited for this fight too. I think it's a great matchup with two great fighters. Let's talk about Ryan Loder first, okay? Ryan Loder, he's always easy to break down. He is a pure, decently durable wrestler with great grappling overall. And with that grappling, he does have good ground and pound with all of that too. After looking okay outside the UFC, we've seen him twice now, where he got the job done over Robert Valentin, which unfortunately doesn't really say much. Robert Valentin's just okay, or maybe a little bit lackluster. But then he went into his bout with Izagakhmaev. He wasn't able to get anything going in that bout, and he ended up getting TKO'd. So he's going to have to come into this fight here with a little bit more to prove, because we haven't seen too much from him at a high level, but he's still in his prime. There's still some room to make it work. He's just going to have to, get to work on that, because he has another very, very tough fight ahead of him over here in Ismail Naurdiev. And Ismail Naurdiev, guys, he is a well-rounded fighter, but he is primarily a striker. He has fast combinations on the feet. He has very nice explosive movement. He has snappy kicks, good cardio, and great counters with all of that. All of that, though, does come with a couple issues, and while he does look great with all of that in the first round, and in the first round he looks to be top level, but he tends to fade a little bit later in fights. If he could ever come into the octagon and clean up that cardio, he just might be able to contend with some of the best. Honestly, I do believe that. The only other thing I did want to mention about Ismail is he isn't afraid to cheat in fights. Eye pokes, fence grabs, nut shots, you name it, this guy's willing to do it. Ismail is now 24-8 in his career, and he's had one win and one loss so far in his UFC. He had a really, really clean performance coming in against Bruno Silva, which, just like we mentioned with Robert Valentin, unfortunately doesn't say much. Bruno's has been beyond washed these past couple years. But then after that, he also had a great scrap with Jungyeon Park, who is a very, very, very underrated fighter and talent in the division. Park ended up snagging the win, unfortunately. Well, I mean, I like Park better, but I mean, unfortunately for his case, with toughness and cardio that he used, but he still had a pretty good performance against Jungyeon Park. And scrapping with Jungyeon Park in the way that he did, I think it's a good look, man. So he's riding high in my book still, but he does need to prove himself a little bit more. He's in his prime now. There's still a ton of room for improvement, and I would like to see him come in and fix that cardio issue that he has, man, because I really do believe he has the potential to be a top-level fighter if he were to clean that up, man. But I gotta go with Ismail Naurdiev in this fight, guys. Even though that I'm concerned about him if this fight ends up making it 3 rounds, I don't really think Ryan Loder in his game is going to do much to Ismail Naurdiev. There's going to be a clear advantage on the feet over there, and he could probably contain in the grappling that Ryan Loder has. Nothing against Ryan Loder, of course. He just hasn't impressed me all that much. But Ismail Naurdiev, we definitely do see some potential from. So I'm going to pick Ismail Naurdiev to get the job done in this bout. Let's continue on to the next fight. And continuing on, guys, we have Kyoji Horiguchi coming back into the UFC, taking on Tagir Ulanbekov. This is such a good matchup. I am so excited for this. They're not giving Kyoji Horiguchi any sort of break whatsoever, dude. Let's talk about it. We'll break down Kyoji Horiguchi first. And Kyoji Horiguchi, guys, you might know, he's a well-rounded fighter. He's one of those guys that can pretty well do it all. He has good power on the feet. He has great killer instinct. He has a nice grappling game to back up all of that skill set. He also has a lot of experience against very, very underrated and good talent. Now, like I said, as you guys might know, Kyoji is an old UFC fighter that is now returning into the octagon after years away. And over those years, the guy has been just putting in a ton of work. He has been kind of all over the place, facing some pretty good competition for the most part. And the record that he has now is now 34-5 in MMA, which is nuts. The guy took off and just decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to shine in my career. So I'm excited to see him back. Now, of course, though, while I did just mention that he took on some good fighters, they aren't nearly UFC level, okay? The flyweight division has since really expanded with top-level talent since his departure from the UFC. One more thing I would like to mention here. If you've been following the channel, you might know, guys, that you might have heard me say that I always want to be as transparent as possible with you guys because I'm somebody who makes these videos that break down fights, that talk about MMA betting. I've only seen fights here and there with Kyoji since he's been out of the UFC. I've been in the loop. I've been aware about what's going on, but I haven't sat down and looked closely into any of his performances. I've seen a ton of highlights. I've seen a few fights of his. So if you're somebody who happens to come to these videos and value my opinion at all when it comes to matchups, I personally need to do some more work when it comes to Kyoji Horiguchi. I cannot wait to see him in the octagon back either way, though, man. Again, I just always want to be honest with you guys over here. I haven't been, watching every single one of his fights, okay? Let's talk about Tagir Ulanbekov and somebody that I have been watching. He's a fighter training out of Eagle MMA, and he is a dangerous grappler with a high pace, Great takedowns and sneaky sweeps, with solid control. What's wrong with me? With that grappling game, he also does bring a pretty good striking game, but he definitely shines on the ground, okay? On the feet, he has a strong and very underrated clinch game, I would say, and he has a nice, really crisp jab, too. He's also good at listening to his corner, which, whenever I mention that, I always say that it's sad that I have to point out in these breakdowns when a fighter actually listens to their coaches. But anyways, the last thing that I did want to mention about Tagir Ulanbekov is that he can fade a little bit in bouts, but he has good heart, and that heart that he has carries him through any fading that he may experience. He just kind of like visibly gets tired in that octagon over there. But anyways, Tagir Ulanbekov, he's 17-2, man. He's been putting on some really, really nice work as of recent. He beat Nate Maness, he beat Cody Durnan, which both of those fights, they're good wins, but they're nothing like incredibly special. Then he beat Clayton Carpenter, and as at Maxim, and both of those fights were, they were pretty close fights, and I actually, you know, when he was fighting Azat, I actually think that Azat got the job done over him personally, but it was close enough not to complain. Regardless, we have seen that true high-level performances like that he's come in and he's put on against quality opponents, and he's probably going to continue improving. He's still in his prime, he's been training with great guys, and I cannot wait to see him back in the cage, and I cannot wait to see him back in this matchup. So, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I really, really, really hope Kyoji Horiguchi does the job over here. How cool would it be for a story like that? To come back, to leave the UFC, go do a bunch of work, come back just to, like, contend with the best of the best. But, man, is he going to have a tough outing over here against Tagir Ulanbekov in Qatar, too? It's going to be tough. I have to go. I think that Kyoji Horiguchi is very capable of winning, but I have to go with Tagir Ulanbekov. He's been consistently fighting better guys. He's going to have a reach advantage over here. He's going to be a little bit taller. And I want to see, I'll be interested in the weigh-in when they actually end up facing off, because if Tagir has a big strength advantage on Kyoji, I think that's going to be a little bit of an issue with his control. I could see him having a lot of success with his jab in this fight. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Kyoji Horiguchi gets the job done. I would love, love, love to see him win. But I have to lean towards Tagir Ulanbekov in this bout. But Kyoji can definitely storm in, clock Tagir, make him have some problems. I just think it's more likely that Tagir does get the job done in that bout. Alright guys, let's move on to the next matchup over here. We have Luke Riley coming into the UFC. Huge prospect over here, taking on Bogdan Grad. Another incredible fight over here. I want to start with Luke Riley over here on the left, guys. Let's break him down first, okay? Luke Riley, he is an excellent striker who has a complete skill set when it comes to, you know, fighting on the feet. He shines and he does his best work in the boxing, but he's like, he's just also so good at mixing things up with little things like, you know, elbows here and there, sneaky knees coming up here and there. He brings an insane amount of pressure. He's fairly durable, and he has really great combinations and very underrated power behind some of those shots. Like, if this guy starts teeing off, it could be an issue. Now, this guy, guys, he is a true prospect. He's coming out of Cage Warriors, and another new signing in the UFC debuting on this card. He's 26. He's 11-0. He's taken on some good opponents, although the opponents could be better. This guy is just a dangerous man, and I am very excited to see what kind of work that he can do in the cage. Like, seriously, if you guys don't know Luke Riley, go back and watch some of his fights. There is some exciting work over there. But he's taking on a tough opponent. We'll talk about Bogdan Grad. Bogdan Grad, guys, he is a very well-rounded fighter with good power, solid killer instinct, and he has a ton of heart that he brings into that octagon. He is 15-3 and now in his MMA career, and he's coming off of his first loss in a little while, and his first loss in the UFC, and that loss was to Muhammad Naimov, where it was a really close fight. I personally edged it to Muhammad Naimov, but he showed up in that fight, man. He showed up, and he looked good even in that loss. Even in that loss, like, I was still kind of, like, left feeling high about him. Prior to that, he had two pretty good performances. Well, like, maybe not, like good against Lucas Alexander, but good in the sense where he ended up pulling things together, and he ended up getting the job done over him in that fight. I'm pretty high on this guy. I think he has a solid future on him, man. He's in his prime, and he's taking a rough outing here over here in Luke Riley. I just think that Bogdan Grad might be going a little bit under the radar over here. Tough one, man. Tough one. We have Bogdan Grad, who has that UFC experience. He's in his prime. He's been looking good. Oof. He's probably going to want to take things to the ground. But Luke Riley, he actually is like a really, really, really solid up-and-coming prospect. I think this one's a little bit more of a difficult fight to call. You know, I'm kind of a believer in Luke Riley. Definitely not one to bet on. Maybe a 1.5. You have two really, really tough guys. I'd be interested to see what a round line would be for this one. I'm going to pick Luke Riley. reluctantly pick Luke Riley, man. I think it's a difficult fight to call. This is very exciting. This is one of my most anticipated matchups on the card, guys. Both guys looking very good, very exciting. I'm going to go with Luke Riley. I'm going to say that he shines here. He rises to the occasion. Luke Riley's going to be my pick. I'm interested to see what you guys think about that one. I wish we had odds for this one, man. And guys, let's keep at it. Let's keep working up the card over here. We have another really fun matchup in Beksat Almakhan taking on Alexandre Topuria. Incredible. I am very excited to watch this fight. This is one of the, guys, we just had UFC 322. Depending on when you're watching this video, I'm recording it prior to UFC 322. I'd be shocked if that card did not perform. But this one could very, very well match up. The matchups on this card are incredible, guys. Let's start with Beksat Almakhan. I'll stop glazing the matchmakers, okay? Beksat Almakhan, guys, is a well-rounded fighter who does a particularly good job when he is on the offense. He does a fantastic job on the feet, mixing things up, along with just bringing really good KO power and cardio behind all of that and sort of into the octagon. He also has great defense, and he's one of those guys that does a really, really good job at never accepting any sort of bad position. Now, if you've been following the UFC for a little while, you might know that Beksat Almakhan, he kind of came onto the scene. He was relatively unknown, and he just came in. He put his name out there right into the UFC right away when he took on Umar Nurmagomedov, where he showed up, guys. He showed up in that fight, and he just flat out proved that he belongs with some of the best in that octagon against Umar Nurmagomedov. And in my opinion, that really says something, especially for your UFC debut. He then came back right after that loss and KO'd Brad Katona about 6 months ago. Now he's back in the octagon. He's taking on a really interesting contender, I will say, okay? He just entered his prime right now, and he still has a lot of time to improve and a lot of time to still give this sport over here. And I want to say interesting matchup over here because I have a little bit I want to say about Alexandre Topuria. But let's break down his style first, okay? Of course, Alexandre Topuria, he is the brother of one of the potential greatest fighters of all time, that of course being Ilia Topuria. You can kind of think about his style that's similar to Ilia's, well-rounded, boxing heavy, but the problem is he isn't nearly as dangerous, unfortunately. He doesn't carry that same, like, presence or aura in the cage, if you want to use that term, and definitely doesn't have the same power. That isn't a knock to Alexandre Topuria, though. Ilia is just, sometimes able to generate a different kind of power altogether with his timing and things like that, too. But he's still shown to be very good, man. He's really methodical in his movement. He's defensively aware. He makes his shots count. Again, he just doesn't, unfortunately, have that same sting on his shots that Ilia does. But his technique is solid. He plays things safe. He does what he needs to do to get the job done when he's in the octagon. He has good boxing. He has good grappling. He has really sneaky and good takedowns in his arsenal on top of all of that. Now, Alexandre, guys, he is essentially, undefeated. He does have one loss, but if you take a look at that loss over on Tapology, you would notice that it was years and years and years ago. Technically, I know it is still a loss, but my point being, fighters can change a lot. And then he went on a roll in MMA since then. He came into the UFC. He broke another long layoff against Colby Thickness, where he came in, got the job done, but it wasn't nearly a perfect performance. He mostly used his grappling to win that bout. Regardless, it was just I didn't see any of that it factor that his brother has in that matchup. And after that fight with Colby, I was kind of left feeling a little bit unsure on how he'll fit within the UFC ranks. And he's taking on a very, very tough test, in my opinion, in Beksat Almakhan over here. And this is why I'm very excited for this fight too. You have a very, very interesting prospect training with one of the best fighters ever. Game planning with Ilia Topuria is probably going to be great. I only imagine that he's going to continuously improve in his prime. But Beksat's a little bit of an animal, guys. Guys, here's the way that I'm thinking about it, okay? I have been more impressed with Beksat Almakhan than I have with Alexandre Topuria. Why do I feel like I'm crazy for thinking that Beksat Almakhan's going to get the job done? Another thing that I do like for this, though, you have two really tough guys. I like a 1.5 for this fight. I'd be interested. Again, I wish we had the odds in front of us, but we can't really dive into that, unfortunately. I'm going to go with Beksat. Even if Alexandre, I think that he'll be better on the feet. And maybe. I don't know. Topuria has some good boxing, and he's probably going to improve. It's such a good matchup. I can't wait to watch this, man. I'm thinking, even if Alexandre Topuria wants to mix in that grappling, he's very well-rounded. He plays things safe, right? Beksat's very good at just, not accepting any sort of bad position. And I was really impressed when he came into the UFC against Umar, man. Shined after that performance. I'm going to do it. I'm picking Beksat Almakhan to win the fight. In saying that, though, it's a low-confidence pick. I'm just not convinced of Alexandre Topuria yet. Colby Thickness is an okay fighter. It's a good win to have. I just think that Bekzat would kind of like go through him. And I know that MMA math doesn't work all the time too, or nearly all the time. That's why I'm kind of stopping over here. I'm excited. I'm excited for this fight. I'm going to pick Bekzat Almakhan to get the job done. Kind of hope he gets a job done too. He's a very underappreciated fighter. All right, guys, let's keep going up the card over here to another interesting matchup, but a little bit less exciting in my opinion. But nonetheless, I am excited to just watch this entire card, all the fights. This has some potential. We have Merrick Bujillo taking on Denzel Freeman. This one's going to be a little bit more of a easier fight to break down on the side of Merrick over here, but we'll talk about it, okay? We'll start with Merrick Bujillo over here. Merrick is a grappler with a nice top game. He has good ground and pound. He has nice submissions behind that work. That's pretty easy to describe him. Now with Merrick here, we have the same issue that we did speak about with a few other guys on the card. He has, you know, like with these other guys that have little to no UFC experience, he hasn't fought anybody at all, really. So we can't really tell how he's going to do coming into the UFC. He's 6-0. He's in his prime. He's going to be a little bit taller in this matchup. But there is really nothing to pull from him, unfortunately. But we can talk a little bit more about Denzel Freeman over here, okay? Denzel Freeman, he is a Greco-Roman wrestler who just comes into the cage looking to use just that and get his opponents to the ground and either finish you or just find a submission or just like finish the fight with a ground and pound. He's a weird one to watch wrestle sometimes, guys, because, and like, hang on, don't get me wrong, he has good technique, okay? But a lot of the times if you watch this guy fight, when you see him getting a takedown, it's a little bit less about the actual skill of the skill or the timing of the takedown and more of like, I want you to the ground, so I'm going to run at you and grab you and put you on the ground. A lot of the times he comes in here and he's just like flat out bigger and stronger than his opponents, so he can kind of just do what he wants. It reminds me in a sense of how Derek Lewis fights in a way, but I do feel bad for saying that because the wrestling technique is also present there. It's just like your skill set comparison to Derek Lewis isn't exactly, it's a little bit insulting, I'll say, you know? But it's not all great, unfortunately, because Denzel's striking does need work. He has heavy hands, and he oddly has a very good knee in the clinch, but he is majorly open for counters when he strikes. On top of that, he does slow down as fights continue. He's dangerous, but he's nowhere near perfect. Now, guys, I apologize if I feel like I'm saying a couple of the same things about some guys over here in the video today, but we do have a lot of similarities in the records over here. Freeman has been active. He's been active in both the PFL and LFA. He has experience in both those organizations. And typically I'd sit here and say, awesome, they have some pretty good talent over there. But for his specific opponents, he fought guys with little fight experience and definitely on the lower end of the promotions. But he's still in his prime, so hopefully he shows up as his best self over here. And I gotta say, man, I have to see how these two come in at weigh-ins. I imagine Denzel's going to have a weight advantage. I imagine he's going to have, like, I know that he'll be a little bit shorter. I imagine that he's going to have a size advantage over here. And we don't know, like, anything about Merrick. We don't know anything about him. So I kind of have to assume, with the little experience that Merrick has, I imagine Denzel Freeman will get away with what he's been doing so far. Running at you, I'm going to put you on the ground, I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to go with Denzel Freeman for that reason. But it's a low confidence pick because, again, while Merrick's undefeated, the talent level is non-existent pretty much. So I'm going to go with Denzel Freeman to get the job done over here, guys. And next up, we have another interesting matchup, guys, but this one is going to be also a little bit quick to break down over here. We have Abdul Ramakan Yakayev taking on Rafael Kakiria, and I always forget how to pronounce his last name. I always feel bad, and I talk about this in the full card breakdowns all the time. When I have trouble pronouncing some names, it just makes me come off like I have no clue what I'm talking about. Hopefully my breakdowns of these fights are good enough where you'll believe me that I am familiar with these two fighters. Okay, let's get started with Abdul Ramakan over here. And Abdul Ramakan Yakayev is a grappler with incredible takedowns and groundwork. He is very strong. He has great timing, great technique, and he brings forth a real submission threat and great ground and pound on top of all of that as well. He also has some decent power in his hands, and so far he has been shown to be very capable on the feet as well. Now, he is coming to the UFC just 2 months after his Contender Series win. And on Dana White's Contender Series, he just came in, he stormed forward, and he got a finish in about a minute. He is super young. He is undefeated in MMA. He shows a ton of potential and is looking to bring that same momentum into the UFC over here. He will also have a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight specifically. He's been looking good, man. I'm excited to see him make his debut, but let's talk about Rafael Kakiria over here. Rafael Kakiria, whatever you want to pronounce it, he is a well-rounded fighter who excels at the grappling. He has good chain wrestling, he has good scrambles, and typically he can keep up a good pace. He is also capable on the feet, but I do believe that he does his best work when he's on the ground. Now, unfortunately, Rafael has been winless in the UFC since he joined. He had losses to both Ibo Aslan and Modestas Bukauskas, and ended up getting finished in both those fights. I know some might say the Ibo loss hasn't aged well, but that was like a completely different version of Ibo Aslan, and that version is definitely an acceptable loss to have in my opinion. But after those 2 fights, just 3 months ago, when he got beat up by Julius Walker, and arguably like an even worse performance, because outside of like that one little moment that he had in that bout, little resistance was offered, and Julius kind of just like did whatever he wanted. So he's honestly, probably at risk of being cut if he loses again in this bout. He doesn't really bring much to the UFC, I hate to say. We can only hope that losing this much has lit a fire under his butt. He's unfortunately out of his prime now too, so he's really going to have to like dig deep in here, and he has another tough matchup over here, and I'm excited to watch Abdul Ramakan get the job done. I expect him to win this fight. I haven't seen anything from Rafael Kikera when he came into the UFC against these guys that makes me think, oh, you know what? He's going to be able to stop the game of Abdul Ramakan. And I understand, like, he also doesn't have UFC experience. I just think that he's better than Rafael. I just think that he's better. He's going to come in. He's probably going to do a little bit more of the same thing. He might be able to survive a little bit, but I think Abdul Ramakan is most likely going to come in. He's going to use his wrestling game, and he's just going to completely outwork Rafael Kikera. That's how I see the fight going. I think that's the most likely scenario. So I'm going to pick Abdul Ramakan Yakayev to get the job done in this bout. And guys, we have a very, very, very fun main card to talk about, guys. But before that, let me stop you for just a second. As on this channel, we do talk a lot about betting. I wanted to point you guys over to the channel membership, which is very cheap compared to other channels. If you are looking to either support the channel or seeing exactly what I'm doing with my money, if you'd like to either combine my fight knowledge with your own experience or your own bets, either that, or you just want to support the channel, you can check out the channel membership in the pinned comment description down below, or right next to the subscribe button. Every single Friday or Saturday that a UFC event is on, I'll be posting a community members post along with a members only video diving into exactly what I am doing with my own money. We do dive into other promotions here and there, but I am primarily a UFC bettor. So again, if you'd like to either support the channel, see what I'm doing with my money, or just combine my fight knowledge with your own research, and you can check out the channel membership again. Pinned comment, description down below, right next to the subscribe button, any one of those. Additionally, a tool that we typically use on the channel over here, OddsGym, we are going to be using it for the main and the co-main event. It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal app and site if you are somebody who is using multiple sports books. It's great at judging lines, and it's a very, very helpful tool over here, guys. If you'd like to sign up to OddsGym, you can use my code in the pinned comment description down below. My link, code Clenbat. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Let's get into the main card for today. And starting off the main card over here, we have Volkan Oezdemir back in the octagon taking on Alonzo Menifield. Actually, this is an important fight for both guys, man. A very important fight for both guys. I'm excited to watch it. Let's break down these two. Let's break down Volkan Oezdemir, guys. Volkan Oezdemir, he's always pretty easy to break down. He is a good kickboxer. He has nice accuracy and power with his hands, with improved and underrated grappling behind all of that. Now, as I'm sure you guys all know, Volkan has been in the UFC for a very long time. The guy's come in. The guy has been battle tested. He's been through a lot of fights, and he has experience being in there with some of the best of the best. In his career now, he is 20-8, and he's been fairly inconsistent, unfortunately. He's 36 years old as well, so no time might have father time approaching quickly. Sound a little cringe, but I do believe that he's past his prime, but nowhere near like a level of being washed. And he's actually had some good performances as of late, guys. He looked spectacular against Bogdan Guskov, which that's aging pretty well. Then he knocked out Johnny Walker, which unfortunately doesn't exactly say too much. But then almost a year ago, he was finished against Carlos Ulberg. And unfortunately, guys, that's kind of like been the story of Volkan Oezdemir. He'd look great. He'd rack up some finishes. He gets a hype going. Volkan Oezdemir's back, just to lose when someone he takes on that's like around top 5 level. He's shown potential in a lot of his bouts, but he's never really like been able to clutch up and hit that next level. Like I said, it's kind of like been that for the majority of his career, and I like Volkan, man. I always hope that he gets the job done, and I'm definitely going to be cheering for him in this matchup. Nothing against Alonzo Menifield, I just like Volkan Oezdemir. But let's break down into Alonzo Menifield. He is a striker with good power and typically good takedown defense to keep things on the feet. He can be wild in the cage, and sometimes that works out for him, but unfortunately, a lot of times it has led to some pretty sloppy fights, some sloppy performances, and nearly not all of the fights going his way when he makes them chaotic. He also can fade in fights, and he doesn't exactly show good fight IQ in the octagon. Now, guys, I don't mean to be disrespectful here, but Alonso has unfortunately never really been that impressive. A lot of us probably overrated his chaos and power in the past and him coming into the UFC, but he looks bad in bouts more often than he actually looks good in bouts. He's been fairly active. He's been on 2-fight win streak, but he won he won a sloppy, not so great technically fight against Julius Walker. Then he fought Umar Sy, and nothing happened in that fight. Prior to those 2 fights, you'll see for the most part that the competition level was better than the wins that he's snagged recently. Somehow he's 17-5. Perhaps the lower competition was the solution. I don't know. But he's just a guy that kind of comes in. He probably shouldn't win fights, but sometimes he can make it sloppy enough or just catch somebody with a big shot and snag a win somehow. He's also very up there in age at this point in his career at 38 years old, but that's something that you can get away with at light heavyweight. He just, unfortunately, guys, he hasn't looked too great in his career in recent years, in my opinion, and I struggle to see a way that Alonso Manafield can beat Volkan Oezdemir. I know Volkan's dropped the ball before. He's dropped the ball a lot of times in his career, but when I see these guys matching up, I think that Volkan will be able to, clock Alonso Manafield. If Alonso Manafield even comes in, let's say he does nothing like we've seen him do before. Let's say he does nothing like he did against Umar Sy. Volkan's probably just going to outwork him. If he comes in and makes things chaotic, I could see Volkan just catching him. I think there's a clear difference in the striking here, and that's why I'm going to pick Volkan Oezdemir to get the job done, even though that he ended up getting finished. Of course, you do have to worry about after getting finished someone's chin changing, but I think that Volkan's going to come back. We've seen him in that scenario before. I think Volkan is going to just flat out outstrike Alonso Manafield, maybe finding a finish. I'm pretty confident that Volkan Oezdemir gets the job done, and I hope he gets the job done, man. I have liked Volkan for a very, very long time. He's one of those guys that's, underappreciated. He flies under the radar. It's who really sits down and goes, hey, I'm a Volkan Oezdemir fan? That's why I kind of cheer for him. I think he's a relatively unproblematic guy. He seems like a good guy. I usually cheer for Volkan when he fights, man. I think he's a really fun fighter, too. All right, guys, let's continue on up the card over here. Jack Hermansson's returning. The Joker taking on Mikdebek Orolbai. Another fight that I am incredibly excited for. Let's talk about Jack Hermansson first, guys. And Jack Hermansson, guys, he is a well-rounded fighter, and he's one of those guys who doesn't really shine anywhere, but he is just, well-rounded in general. Maybe he's probably a little bit best when grappling, but, you can't count on him to come in with a grappling game plan. The guy's just a good fighter. He's also shown to have good fight IQ and cardio on top of all of that. Now, Jack recently returned to the octagon just about 4 months ago against Gregory Rodriguez, and I know Gregory is great, and I'm not sure if that narrative will change based on his fight with Roman Kopylov. Again, I'm recording this video before UFC 322 and Roman Kopylov's fight against Gregory Rodriguez takes place. MMA fans are jumpy in case he has to lose, okay? Regardless of the outcome, Gregory is still a phenomenal fighter. To my surprise, personally, Jack lost that fight. I thought that he'd kind of be able to stay on the outside, maybe shoot in a sneaky takedown. I thought that he'd be able to get a one-up on Gregory Rodriguez. But he got outstruck for a round and flatlined really bad. And that's always something that we need to take into consideration in these guys. He got knocked out, and he had a follow-up shot that was massive. The dude was out really bad. And is he returning too early? How's the damage? Will he be chinny moving forward? He's going on 38 years old now, and that's not an easy thing to recover from. That's something you need to worry about. We might officially, guys, be looking at a Jack Hermansson here that is past his prime. Before that, though, he's had a pretty good career. He's had a lot of experience. He's beaten some really, really good guys. Like I mentioned, he's just unfortunately up there in age now, and he will have a 4-inch reach advantage in this bout, specifically about a 4-inch reach advantage, and that's something that he can certainly take advantage of if he comes in, wants to strike, stay on the outside a little bit over here. Maybe that will be the game plan because of who he's facing. But let's talk about Mikdebek Orolbai, guys. Love this guy. Mikdebek Orolbai. He is a well-rounded fighter, but primarily a pressure wrestler with a very good submission game. He does have good hands, but he excels when he is utilizing his grappling skill set in the octagon. And as I mentioned, he can bring insane pressure into the cage. He has great cardio with that. And he's also one of those guys that comes in and he has next level heart in the cage. There is absolutely no breaking this man when you are fighting him. He will make it a tough outing for anybody that he's facing if you're coming in trying to fight him, okay? Now, if you guys have been following the channel, you might know that I have been extremely high on this guy, Mikdebek Orolbai, for a very long time. I think he's great, and of course, he's fun to watch. He's had some fun performances. He's 14-2 with his only loss coming Mateusz Rebecki. And do we even want to like consider that fight a loss, man? His stock only went up in that fight. Sorry. I know like it is a loss, okay? But I mean, I was just left like feeling so good about him in like that brutal technical war that they went through. Other than that, it's been just all wins as of late, man. He's been beating good guys. Even before entering the UFC, he's beaten some good guys. He most recently got a win over Tofik Muziev where he came out, he wrestled right away, ended up snagging up a nice submission, didn't go through a war that time. The guy's on a roll. He's not even in his prime yet, and I cannot wait to see him come in and perform in the octagon again, guys. And the guy, it's a little bit of a tough one because now he's taking on a guy who has had that experience with a bunch of ranked guys, but I still think Miktabek Orolbai is better. I think Miktabek Orolbai has a very, very promising career on his hands, man. Jack Hermansson, you have to worry about how he comes back too. You don't necessarily have to worry about the power of Miktabek Orolbai, but sometimes guys, when they get chinned the way that Jack Hermansson did, especially at his age, might be tentative. Might come in and just like be a little bit slower. Sometimes people change after finishes like that. And that was a bad finish with a bad follow-up shot. I'm going to go with Miktabek Orolbai. I think he'll be able to contend on the feet, and I think that he'll have a slight advantage on the ground against Jack Hermansson, but Jack Hermansson's definitely not a guy to sleep on. He might, I imagine Jack will come in with the game plan, kind of like what he had against Joe Pyfer. Stay on the outside, pick his shots. But I think Orolbai will get to him. I'm going to pick Miktabek Orolbai to get the job done. I'm kind of like 70-30 on that. Definitely not counting out Jack Hermansson, but Miktabek Orolbai is going to be my pick. And while I do like the Joker, I hope Miktabek Orolbai wins. Love watching that guy fight. Big fan of his. All right, guys, let's keep going over here up to the featured bout. We have Serghei Spivac taking on Shamil Gaziev. I can't imagine the memes that we're going to be seeing in this fight. We're going to have Serghei Spivac. I think he's a great fighter. And Shamil the Blob Gaziev. This will be more fun. Oh, this isn't the featured bout, excuse me. But this will be more fun to watch than like... or watch the build up to than actually watch the fight. Okay, let's break down Serghei Spivac first. And Serghei Spivac, guys, Serghei Spivac is a decently well-rounded fighter with improving boxing and very good throws, okay? And he has good BJJ for a heavyweight. If he's able to get on top of opponents, he does have very violent ground and pound in his arsenal. And guys, I feel like every time that I talk about Serghei Spivac, I forget how young he is. Is it just me? He's literally in his prime. He's 30 years old, going on 31 years old, and he has a ton of UFC experience over the years. And most of the time, he's been fairly active, too. He's win some, he comes in, he wins some, he loses some. He's just like a solid top 10 heavyweight and kind of always has been. If he happens to fight a championship caliber fighter, typically he'll lose. Otherwise, he comes in where he has a pretty good chance of winning. He could be in better shape for heavyweight, but he's actually, he's like by no means a Chris Barnett. And I lied to you just now. I literally just remembered how much fatter he was in his most recent fight. Don't know what happened there, but he did come into the weigh-ins in the fight like way, way bigger than usually, and he didn't perform well. So I don't know. Maybe that was a one-time thing. I can't believe that I forgot about that. Maybe something was wrong. Maybe he's been lacking discipline. We'll have to just, unfortunately, I guess, wait until fight week to say for sure. But he does need to do something, and he does need to kind of pull his career together because he is on a 2-fight skid right now. He's on a 2-fight skid to Jailton Almeida and Waldo Cortez Acosta, as we just spoke about. He didn't really offer anything in those bouts to his threaten his opponents, really. He's looked way better in the past, and like that's all I'm trying to say, you know? Hopefully he can get in there. Hopefully he can put it all together come fight night, because he definitely has some work that he needs to do. But let's talk about the blob. Shamil Gaziev, guys. He is a giant Dagestani striker with really big power and really strong takedowns. His right hand in particular, his straight right hand is really strong, has a lot of sting to it. But what we've learned about Shamil Gaziev in his fight with Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and where all of the memes have been born, is that he has 2 massive holes in his game. He has a huge heart issue, and he also has a huge cardio issue. That's something that needs to be handled on his end as soon as possible. But we still haven't seen him in a fight like that since. So we have to assume, for the most part, those issues will still be present if he has to go over it around at a fight that's at a decent pace. Since that fight, though, we've seen him twice, and he got himself to a decision against Dontel Mays, which doesn't say much. It wasn't the same pace that was put on him already. In that fight, he was clearly tired, though. He got through. Then he fought Thomas Peterson, and he looked a little bit better, getting a KO in that bout, but we didn't see enough fight time for him. If he can show that he comes in as a heavyweight, he fixes those cardio issues, which we can't necessarily count on, but if he does, he will be a very solid contender in the division. At the state of heavyweight right now, 100%. This goes to show the state of heavyweight too, because he's already talked about as a contender, which is crazy. That's how bad the heavyweight division is right now. But anyways, he's 35 years old, almost 36 years old. He should have a weight advantage over here. And I'm excited to see what kind of version Shamil Gaziev shows up over here. So, here's the thing. I know we joke about the blob. I understand that. He's going to come in, and he's probably going to be a very, very, very heavy man. Can Serghei Spivac throw him? I'm not, like, joking around. I'm being serious right now. Can Serghei Spivac take him down? I feel like Shamil Gaziev... Sorry if you heard that, guys. I'm hungry. My stomach's growling. I feel like Shamil Gaziev will just kind of, like, plow through whatever Serghei Spivac wants to do. But how can I pick a guy that has, like, this major cardio issues, you know? I don't know. This is one of the toughest fights on the entire card to pick from, in my opinion. Serghei Spivac has never looked worse, and Shamil Gaziev, he still hasn't, like... I know that he went to a decision, but he hasn't put any pace on him since that Jairzinho Rosenstrike fight. We don't know if those, like, two giant holes still exist in the game. Typically, one doesn't get past the heart issue, but the cardio issue? I don't know, man. I'm going to take Shamil Gaziev for the sake of the video, but I think this is a 50-50 fight. Too difficult to call. But we do have to make a pick over here, and I'm going to pick Shamil Gaziev to get the job done. The memes are just going to be funny for this one, to be honest with you guys. But now let's talk about the actual featured bout over here. We are closing up the card with three phenomenal fights. We have Alex Perez taking on Asu Almabayev. Very, very excited for this fight. Okay, let's talk about Alex Perez first. And Alex Perez, guys, he is a well-rounded fighter with strong wrestling. He has great leg kicks and good cardio with a lot of high-level experience. The only hole in his game is that he can be open to submissions and that he has struggled in the past when it comes to absolute top level of competition, but his wrestling is still good enough, and he's, again, a very well-rounded fighter. So it's like him losing by submission isn't like a hole in his game. It's just something to note that it's in the realm of possibility for him to lose by submission. He has in the past, and, you know, it happens with Alex Perez. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Alex is coming back after a very nasty injury when he fought Tatsuro Taira in his last matchup. It seemed like he shattered his knee while a takedown was in progress. Well, sorry, that's like exactly what happened, but what I meant by that is I don't know specifically like what part of the knee ended up getting injured. That's what I meant by that. So first things first, if you're a betting man, you need to keep this in mind. We have seen fighters over the years never look the same after things like, especially like a bad knee injury, okay? Especially an injury as nasty looking as the one Alex Perez went through. He could be hesitant to use that leg, throw it. He could be overly cautious of leg kicks, understandably so, but there's a possibility that after something like that, we no longer see a version of Alex Perez that we've been used to seeing. So definitely, again, if you're a betting man, that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to move forward here, assuming that everything is okay. Obviously, if he does have a fight booked, he's healed up, but those mental blocks could be there, and a re-injury is always possible in these types of crazy fights. Anyways, let's continue, okay? I've always thought that Alex Perez was a lot better than his record shows. He has been in there with quite literally some of the best, guys like Pantoja, Davison Figueiredo. He's 25-9, and he had long layoffs, I guess, so we could really only point to his most recent two performances for reference, because prior to that, we're talking like 3-4 years down the line. The guy just has not been active. But he beat Mateus Nicolas, where he looked good, and he found a knockout in that bout. Then, of course, his most recent loss was to Tatsuro Taira, where while that fight lasted, guys, he looked really good. And, like, both guys were looking good. Both guys were having moments. It was a pretty back-and-forth fight. He just, unfortunately, ended up suffering that one injury. But I'm excited, man. Alex Perez always comes out. When he gets into the cage, he's a dog in the cage. He's still in his prime, and he always seems, like, motivated to get out there and perform. I can't wait to see what he does. He's a very underrated and underappreciated fighter. But I want to talk about Asu Almabayev, guys. Asu Almabayev, he is a very well-rounded fighter with pretty good striking, but his best work is definitely when he's able to implement his ground game. He has incredible takedowns, he has great control, and he has great ground and pound. Asu is 22-3 in MMA right now, and like a lot of you, I was extremely high on his potential. Just for all of that to kind of like fall off a cliff when he fought Manel Cap. He got obliterated in that fight. He couldn't do anything in that bout. But to be fair, Manel did look like he was really on that night, okay? And there was a lot of talk about PED usage for Manel. I'm not excusing the loss. I'm not saying that he should have won that fight or anything. It would just make me understand that lackluster performance a little bit better, because I thought that he was much better than what he's shown to be in that fight. Regardless, Before that, he's looked incredible, and he bounced back with that loss against Jose Ocha, which he had a really, really solid, clear technical victory. He's 31. He's in his prime. He'll continue to look good, and I have to say that I'm still pretty high on Asu Amabeyev myself. I'm excited to see him perform over here. In saying that, though, guys, my gut's telling me Alex is going to get one over on him. Asu Amabeyev is a great fighter, but I feel like Alex Perez has kind of like been there, done that with high-level fighters. The thing is, he doesn't always get the job done, right? We've seen Alex Perez lose a lot of fights, but he always comes in and he always puts up a good fight, man. It's tough. This is more of a gut feeling. Like, I think that Asu Amabeyev is a really, really good fighter with a bright future ahead of him. I just see Alex Perez going like, yeah, you know what? I've fought guys like you before. I'm going to push the pace and kind of do what I want. Does anybody else feel that way? I can't really point to you exactly how he's going to win. He has more experience. And I think he's going to, you know, I just think he's going to get the job done. I know that's not the most technical reason for him to win. Again, gut feeling over here. I'm picking Alex Perez to get the job done. I like both guys, man. I don't want to see either one of them lose. Maybe I'll cheer for Alex Perez just a little bit. It's another one where it's a shame that somebody has to lose that fight. But guys, let me stop you one more time over here. As you might know, I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. If you happen to like my commentary, use it for a background. I want to be your background guy. If you happen to like me yapping about things and you're interested in other topics aside from MMA, we do have our toes dipped into multiple niches on YouTube. You can find the link tree at the top of the description or direct links to all of our YouTube channels in the description down below. I have multiple channels that we upload on regularly every single day. Aside from just MMA content, we've been seeing a little bit of bleed over with the communities, and it's been nice to see. Additionally, follow me on X. We want to get community-based videos, and when I quote tweet stuff, I'm looking for opinions from people on the channel too. I would love to have you guys pipe up, and I'd love to hear your opinions and videos, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get into the banger co-main event and main event. All right, guys, for the co-main event over here, we have Belal Muhammad returning against Ian Machado Garry. Incredible, incredible, incredible matchup. I am very excited for this one. I'm kind of more excited for this one than the main event. The main event's going to be good too, though. I don't know, man. You know what? I'm excited for Bogdan Grad. I think... I don't know if that's crazy. I don't want to sound like one of those, like, oh yeah, look at me, how hardcore I am. But I'm, like, legitimately excited for that fight, man. Anyways, Belal Muhammad, Ian Garry, let's break him down, okay, guys? Belal Muhammad, he is a very strong wrestler who looks to weaponize pace and cardio that just outwork his opponents and break his opponents. He excels when he's dictating the pace, slowing things down, and finding his takedowns over and over again. You can think about him like a better version of Colby Covington. And he likes to win with his control, win with his ground and pound. Throughout his career, he's been pretty much shown to be like just that. But his stand-up game has been like sneakily improving a little bit over time. But unfortunately, he's never conquered having pillow hands, besides that weird fight with Sean Brady. The technique has improved from subpar to good on the feet, and I'm comfortable saying that Belal Muhammad is officially a pretty good, well-rounded fighter now. He's just like... he's missing that little extra sting on his shots, you know? But again, his main game, it is in the wrestling department. It's also important to note that he is, unfortunately, likely on PEDs. He's performed a little extra well since been, you know, looking good with all that muscle, training with Habib. I'm not, like, accusing, I'm just saying that's a conversation that's been floating around. Also, I'm not sure to what extent he does train with those guys over in Dagestan. I just know that he's been putting in work with them. But I don't know the length of that at all. That's the time length. That's what I mean. I'm sorry. As we know, Belal is also on he went on an awesome win streak all the way up to winning the championship, and unfortunately just lost it to Jack Della Maddalena in an insane fight. For the most part, guys, Belal Muhammad's he's been coming into the cage. He's been getting better and better as he's aged. He's been looking more dominant. He's been constantly winning, besides, again, for his most recent fight. Prior to that, though, like, it's been pretty well all control and all domination in the vast majority of his bouts. He's taken on the who's who of the division, besides, like, a couple of, like, brand new top contenders like Ian Garry's that have popped up. He's only been improving. And while age-wise, Belal Muhammad has definitely exited his prime, he's still performing well at age 37. So it seems like that he still has a lot to give the sport. The only thing about Belal Muhammad, guys, is I question his motivation a little bit, because he's always had that title to work towards and that win streak to keep up to eventually, like, you know, basically say the UFC, there's no one else to fight, and give me that title fight. Now he's reached it. Will he have that same motivation to recapture of it? Because he has to be, like, aware that he needs to make it undeniable again that he's the next contender, because unfortunately he's not a draw. He could very well still be motivated. I wouldn't blame it at all if he kind of, like, you know, went through some sort of a mental dump. Regardless, I am excited. We'll find out. And he's taken on another insane contender in Ian Machado Garry over here. And the future is a fitting nickname for Ian Garry because he very might be the future, okay? Ian Machado Garry, he is a well-rounded and a rapidly improving fighter that is just well on his way to being a complete fighter. But he is primarily still a kickboxer. In the kickboxing game, he is very effective despite, like, weirdly not having long arms, which we usually talk about in the breakdowns. He does use his range perfectly. He has great calf kicks. He has insanely sneaky knees. He's precise. He has great cardio and fight IQ. He is active, and he is very confident in his well-rounded game. His wrestling and BJJ as well, they have really come along as he's progressed to the point now where he's, like, just as much of a threat with the, like, as his kickboxing too. As I said, he's on his way to being a complete fighter, guys. He's great at dictating the pace, making opponents fight how Ian Garry wants to come in and fight, and his mindset and his confidence, they're all there. He's dedicated to becoming a champion. He's dedicated to improving his craft, and it shows every single time that he comes in and he fights. The guy literally improves every single time that we see him. He brings in really good game plans. He's clearly very motivated, both inside and outside the octagon. Now, if you guys have been following the channel, you might know that I have been, like, skill-wise, I've been very high on Ian Garry for a long time, guys. I didn't necessarily love him as a guy, his story, all that. I thought the Conor McGregor stuff was cringe, but I've really come around to respect him, man. I absolutely love his attitude towards the game, how motivated he is, as I've been talking about, and how willingly he just wants to compete with the best of the best and show his ability. And here he is, doing just that yet again. At 28 years old, just entering his prime, he has looked phenomenal, not only in the cage, but, like, in the work that he's been putting in, the improvements that he's been making. And he's been spending time with Charles Oliveira and Shootbox too. He looks incredible, man. Of course, he just got a win over Carlos Prates in a 5-round war where he looked amazing, then unfortunately lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov in a closely contested high-level fight where his stock only went up. Then he beat Michael Venom Page, which is another really, really, really great win. And before that, he's beat some good guys as well. Like, I've just been on high on Ian Garry as a guy for a long time, and while I'm not sure if he's going to go undefeated from here because the division is stacked, I would be, like, I'd bet that he would, like, championship status is in his future. It's absolutely in his future. In this matchup, he will also have a height and reach advantage, and that's great for him because he's also very good with distance management, and he's also very good with his fight IQ. Guys, this will be a good one, man. And guys, I've been considering just throwing money on Ian Garry because, and it's not going to look good if Chepe Mariscal ended up losing at UFC 322, but there's a few guys out there. I was doing a Joiners and Brito until he lost, but there's a few guys out there. Joshua Van, Chepe Mariscal. I don't care who their opponent is. I can trust them in their improvements, their heart, their dedication to the game, and the wars that they bring in the octagon. And sorry if I didn't say improved. They also improve most times that we see them. There's guys where I just don't care, and I'm going to throw money on them because I can trust them to fight for that money. I'm kind of there with Ian Garry. I'm not, like, majorly confident that he'll beat Belal Muhammad. Like, I think he'll get the job done. I just recognize that Belal Muhammad, he's a great fighter and he can definitely win. But I just want to put money on Ian Garry just because, like, I can trust him in how much he's been improving, how motivated he is, how dedicated he is, you know? I'm definitely picking Ian Garry in this matchup. I think that he will be able to hang with Belal Muhammad on the ground. I'm not saying that he won't get taken down. It's crazy that Ian Garry will have, like, a pretty good reach and height advantage on Belal Muhammad. He's very sneaky with those knees. I can see him catching Belal Muhammad. His jiu-jitsu has been improving like crazy. I think he's going to out-scramble Belal Muhammad. I think he's going to outwork Belal Muhammad. He'll match Belal Muhammad's cardio, and I think that he's going to be miles better than him on the feet. I like Ian Garry a lot in this matchup. I'm just, like, without even thinking about his matchups, it's just one of those guys that I kind of want to bet on. I think that he's going to be a champion in the future. And nothing against Belal Muhammad. I like Belal too. I think he has a great mind for the game. And it sucks that he, like, only had the championship for a short amount of time. I just think that Ian Garry's great. I'm definitely picking Ian Garry in this matchup, and now we actually have odds to take a look at. Ian Garry is set at the average odds of minus 190. I think that Ian Garry should be a little bit more of a favorite, but I'm not. I think him being the favorite is definitely what's proper over here. Let's see. We have over 1.5 at plus money. Excuse me? That's weird. But over 2, that's got to be wrong. But over 2.5 is at minus 286. Make that make sense. Is it just because it's 1 over here? I don't know. Maybe that's something that you could bounce on. But yeah, I like Ian Garry, and I like Ian Garry a lot at those odds. And it's a shame that, again, there's a few fights on this card that it's a shame that somebody has to lose. but I think it's going to be Belal Muhammad. Ian Garry's going to be my pick, and how can I not cheer for him, man? With the attitude that he's brought into the game. Hey, give me a contender. Not like sitting here demanding a title shot. It's so refreshing to see fighters like that. Sean Brady's great for that too. Now, guys, let's talk about the main event of the evening. Arman Tsarukyan taking on Dan Hooker. I am, again, very excited for this card. I'm excited for this main event. It's a worthy main event. Could be the next title challenger. Let's see what happens over here. This could be the next fight for Ilia Topuria. Now, let's talk about Arman Tsarukyan first, guys. And Arman Tsarukyan, he is a very complete fighter. He is very technical and high level in all aspects of MMA, but he is primarily a grappler, and he shines in that area in the fights when he starts working the takedowns and the scrambling and things like that. But no matter where his opponent looks to take a fight, no matter their strengths, Arman can match that level that's brought to him, like, at worst. But again, he does have great technique everywhere in the octagon. He has great fight IQ. He has great durability. He has great heart, cardio. You name it, the guy can pretty well do it all. Now, the big thing that we need to talk about with Arman is activity. In my opinion, motivation might also be able to, be brought to light a little bit. There's absolutely no question that he is championship material skill-wise and fighter-wise, right? Zero question. But he's been so inactive, and he's been so entitled. We've seen countless videos of him just hanging out, eating a ton of food, and just talking about on other occasions, too, how he just deserves a title fight. I struggle to imagine that he's comparable to a guy like we were just talking about, like guys like Sean Brady or Ian Garry right now. And I know that they're in different divisions. It's just like two fighters that ended up coming to mind when we're talking about mindsets, okay? Where they want a title fight, so they'll just fight anybody to prove and make themselves undeniable for a title fight. Arman doesn't do that. He'll fight once, he'll win, he'll act entitled, and be forced to fight again, just to kind of do the same thing. I struggle to see him being more motivated to win than a guy like Dan Hooker here. Also, one more thing before we continue about the matchup and the record. I don't know where this started, but there's also been a lot of talk in the past few months about Arman, like, being rich, his whole family being rich, and the guy just fights for the sake of, like, status and for fun. I'm not sure if that's factual information, and that would certainly play a factor for most people, but if he's always had money, he's performed well in the octagon either way. The guy, he comes in, he's in incredible shape, he takes care of himself, he has serious skills. And now that I'm talking more about it, and maybe like, maybe that could also mean that this layoff and entitlement won't really matter either. Either way, guys, like, it's just something to keep in mind, especially as we talk about betting on this channel. But he's been out now for a year and a half, so ring rust is always a possibility. But Arman Tsarukyan's one of those weird guys who has conquered that constantly. He's conquered ring rust before. Additionally, he's still very young. He's well in his prime at 29 years old. His training partners speak highly of him, and how he's like, he's still shaping up. So while I brought up all of that concern, I still do expect Arman Tsarukyan to show up as he normally does, and that being a top contender. We just talk about, like, we just talk about a lot of betting on this channel as well, so I wanted to make sure those risks are aware for those who, like, may not follow Arman Tsarukyan specifically too closely. For recent performances, I guess we can talk about his last two fights before the long layoff. He knocked up Beneil Dariush quickly, which was a great feat. Beneil's still great. Then solidly beat Charles Oliveira in a really tough technical fight. And that was a Charles too. A Charles Oliveira that was probably still in his prime as well. I'm excited to see what version of him shows up, and if he's leveled up even more at all, because he's already shown to be, like, right up there, man, with the best of the best. And I still, it sucks. We're probably not going to get that Islam Makhachev matchup ever, but now we can fight Topuria maybe, which would be fun. Anyways, let's break down Dan Hooker over here, guys. Dan Hooker is a well-rounded fighter, but he is primarily a kickboxer. You won't really see him working any kind of, like, offensive grappling in the cage. He uses that well-roundedness that he has as defense to keep things on the feet and just making opponents fight him on the feet. He absolutely shines in scenarios where he, like, creates these moments in the cage where he just, like, makes his opponents fight him. And, like, I mean, like, a fight, okay? He utilizes technical chaos with incredible cardio and especially heart to get the job done. One could argue that Dan Hooker is the most durable fighter in MMA, and he has some of the greatest heart and will that we have ever seen to grace the octagon. On top of that, he's only gotten better with time. The only potential issues with Dan Hooker is that his body has been through quite a bit over the years. We know that, like, if you've been paying attention to Dan Hooker at all, we know that he's been breaking things. He's had a lot of injuries, and one of these days he's not going to show up looking the same despite his age right here. A fighter can only go through those kind of wars that he brings into the octagon so many times before their bodies fall apart, and, like, it may very well just be happening now with him breaking bones and hands, you know? But the thing is, that's only a little bit about it, like a worry, because he's been improving from fight to fight recently. So like I said already, guys, if you're a betting man, just keep in mind that Dan has been prone to injuries and all of that. I won't walk you through like the entire thing over here. Specifically, his hand has been a problem, but let's assume that he's healthy, okay? Unfortunately, he has been a little bit inactive because of those injuries, but he is coming into this fight on a very, very nice, low-key and underrated win streak, in my opinion, okay? First off, he beat Claudio Puelles, which unfortunately doesn't say much. Then he outscrapped Jalen Turner in a great performance, and most recently, he came into the octagon, and in my opinion, he was looking vastly improved against Mateusz Gamrot. While at the beginning of the fight, he unfortunately, struggled at the beginning there, he turned it up, and he forced Gamrot into a war and ended up looking incredible there. I personally think that Dan Hooker showed up in that fight, and he leveled up, and he has been leveling up in the later part of his career over here. Hopefully he continues that trend, which is definitely a possibility. Age-wise, Dan is out of his prime, but assuming that he shows up the same guys, in my opinion, he has never looked better, and in this fight specifically, he will have the height and the reach advantage. And this is another very fun fight, man. Okay, so here's the thing. I think that you're probably just trying to be a little bit different if you're picking if you're picking Dan Hooker in this matchup. Arman, it has to be the logical pick over here. I do think, though, that everybody is counting out Dan Hooker too much. Dan has been great. Dan has a way of forcing people into fights. Dan has a way of just, like, especially over 5 rounds, man. I'm getting, like, the Dustin Poirier potential vibes over here. Arman Tsarukyan has great 5-round cardio, don't get me wrong. But Dan has a way of making things dirty and ugly. And like I said, I think that he's been showing up looking improved in these bouts. I imagine that he would be hungrier than Arman Tsarukyan. But with the skill set that Arman Tsarukyan has shown, with the guys that he's beat, with the win streak that he's been on, with him being in his prime as much as he is, you can't not pick Arman Tsarukyan. He should win this fight. I just see a world where Dan Hooker gets an upset. That's all. So Arman Tsarukyan is going to be my pick. I hope he wins. I would love to see him fight for a title. I would love to see what that matchup with Ilia Topuria. Let's take a look at the odds over here. And I do think, again, I think Dan Hooker is being disrespected by the odds here, guys. There is certainly value on the side of Dan Hooker. I just think, like, you can't pick Dan Hooker to win. You can't. If anybody's legitimately picking Dan Hooker to win, please comment down below. I'm interested in your thought process. But again, Arman Tsarukyan's giving me my pick. Minus 422 average odds favorite. That's not worth the juice. Over 2.5 at plus 100. So are people thinking that he's going to come in and submit Dan Hooker? I think those are really good odds. I'd be interested to see what a 1.5 round line is. I think they're going to go to war, guys. I don't think that Arman Tsarukyan's going to finish Dan Hooker that quick, but hey, maybe that's just me overrating Dan Hooker a little bit. But he's a scrappy guy with a lot of heart. But guys, if you want to continue watching MMA content, why don't you check out this video on screen where we recap a bunch of things going viral within the MMA community recently. I'd love to have you over there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care, guys.